We want to keep you engaged and informed as well. Itinerary-wise, we're going to start off with looking at the art of writing a great prompt. Yeah. Then we're going to look at a little bit more technical. We're going to look at custom GPTs. Don't panic if you've not seen them before. I think even if you're not going to go on and use them immediately after today, that's useful for you just to have a sort of vision for where things are going and where, maybe what next year holds for you, something like that. So that's sort of useful. We'll talk about Claude, which is just a competitor to ChatGPT, and I'll show you where that's different. Claude is also free to use, and I'd recommend you exploring Claude as well. And then I'm going to finish off with a little bit on future planning in regards to what's happening in AI and what changes you can expect. Okay, but let's have a quick survey first. I am interested in, let me get this right. Yeah, I want to know how you currently create your job adverts. Okay, are you doing it manually? So no AI whatsoever. If that's the case, that's fine. Are you sometimes using ChatGPT? Or another tool, always using ChatGPT these days, or maybe you're using another tool like Copilot or Claude. Let me know in the chat if that is Copilot or if it's Claude. I'll be interested in seeing what people prefer. And then obviously the second question is, does your organization expect you to use AI in your day-to-day job? Which is, I just thought that's quite an interesting question. And I'll share these results. So people are putting in the chat that their Copilot is the sort of go-to. I'm actually interested in maybe running a session on Copilot. Yeah, okay, great, Alison. Thank you as well. So Alison, Emma, and Victoria, what you're confirming to me is maybe I should run a session on Copilot. I've never used Copilot, but not being too arrogant, it won't take me long to take some of the prompts and stuff I've got and then build some, I think they're called agents. So the custom GPT is called an agent in Copilot. So I'd be interested in doing that. So that's something I might do actually. Okay, brilliant. So let me just share those results with you and we'll talk about them. So most of you are not using AI at all to create your adverts. So, well, not most of you, but a large percentage, 42%. And then there's obviously about 70% are not using it at all or are using it occasionally. And then 17% of organizations expect, or 70% of your organization expects you to use AI, and then the rest of you, a bit of a mixed bag with a small number are discouraged in using AI. And that last piece, when you're discouraged from using AI, I think that's going to be a problem if that's where your organization plants its flag and defends that ground. It's going to be a problem for internal staff who want to get on and do more. Would you want your, if your son or daughter was a graduate and they had a choice between two companies, you'd want them to join the company that was sort of interested in AI, because that would seem to be going to give them the skills they need for the future. Whereas the one that sort of discourages it is not going to help them in their career as much, you would have thought. But also there's a problem attracting staff, I think, in the future, if you're not AI positive. But yeah, there are certainly some challenges there. So Alison said, I'm happy with ChatGPT, but we have company guidelines. So yeah, so I think it's interesting. So I've actually got a note on company guidelines. I've got a link to an employee AI usage policy, which I can share with you, a template. So I'm going to touch on that a bit later on, because I appreciate more and more organizations now should be setting out a policy around AI saying, these are the tools you can use, these are the ones you can't. So yeah, if that is Copilot, great. This is just telling me I need to use Copilot more. I've heard that Copilot, and I've seen it, is just a bit clunky, because Copilot should work better than ChatGPT because all of your documents are there and everything's easy, but it's a bit, I've been told. Okay, right, so thank you for that. I'll stop sharing and let's get straight into it. So becoming a prompt wizard. Okay, I don't want to go too fast too soon on this stuff, but I'm going to obviously spend a lot of time going live this morning to AI. So I'm just going to show you, I've got the desktop app here. So let me just drag this through. So what I've done this morning is, I think what's quite common, perhaps one of the common use cases, more so than create me an advert, which I will also show you as well, but is that you have a job description. I just did a search this morning for job description, and I've got something that's got, it's 5 pages long. There's lots of information here. So I think it's more common that organizations have this type of document. that they want to turn into an advert. And obviously the worst case scenario is they remove the table, maybe, they put all the information in an advert. We don't want that. What I've done here is please convert this job spec into an advert that I can publish on read.co.uk. So I've given it a bit of context. Now, the more context you give, even me saying that I can publish on read.co.uk might change, or probably will change, how ChatGPT goes about this task. Yeah, I don't know, but there's probably a little subtlety change. If I was posting it on my career site, I would suggest there is an argument you could post a slightly longer version of the advert, because those people on your career site have already found you as an organization, and they're already maybe pre-qualified you, so they're willing to give you more time. On a job board, you've got to have a shorter, snappier advert, you could argue, because there's hundreds of thousands of other adverts that you're competing against. But anyway, let's just throw that out there. Let's see what it does. It's a really short prompt. Okay, and we're going to show you longer versions of that, but at the very least, it's making a reasonable effort. Interestingly, if you know anything about the read.co.uk optimization, it wants the title to be completely clean. So just, if you want to be number one for the term finance officer, then don't write finance officer, part-time you want it to be finance officer. It wants to be, it's an absolute perfect match. So that's how Read works, which not other job boards don't work like that. So but this is not really given to me. It's given to me in a format, you wouldn't paste all this content into a job advert. Okay, but we've got headings. We've got a relatively short advert. It's certainly probably decided to take a few things out. How to apply. Now, I mean, this isn't, if I told it I was posting it on a job board, so it's given me a, please submit your CV and a covering letter. Well, that might not be the right version for the job board, so who knows. And it says you want to be a punchy version, so it's giving you an idea, to fit Read's character limits more precisely. I recommend finance officer part-time. Yeah, that may be, because that might be what you're trying to match for. That might be the number one keyword, but we won't get too far into technical optimization. Okay, now what I could say is I use voice a lot. So you'll see there's a little voice icon. So there's one of my tips. And the reason I use voice a lot is because I can quickly, well, it's much more efficient, but I can, I bet if you watched how people prompt these tools, the people who use voice provide it much more information because it's just quicker to do. Can you provide me a numbered list of all of the items that you removed from my person spec document that I uploaded at the start? So I just want to check that you've not removed anything that's quite important. Okay, so there we go. This is a tip I'll give you later on. You can see the prompt. So you probably want to build, depending on your exact, worries and concerns, you probably want to build out a prompt that does a bunch of this stuff that will create you the advert the way you want it. We'll talk about how to do that. But then it also has little safeguards in place as well that will show you on a listed item, these are all the things that we've removed. I've removed this, I've removed a long list of routine duties. I did this, and I might say, let's just say I've removed a long list. I might say, look, no, I want you to give me a very specific list of everything you removed or decided not to include. Put it in with headings. So show me all of the responsibilities that you declined to list, for example, and work it through like that. Okay. So this is how I work with ChatGPT. I don't know if you guys work differently. It's like an ongoing conversation quite often, particularly when I'm trying to establish the best way to go about a task. Yeah, I've now worked out, hopefully, that the very specific list and given an example of responsibilities, maybe that's the best way of going. Maybe I need to provide it, knowledge not fully spelled out. We didn't talk about this. Personal attributes not fully spelled out. So the original was that, and the rationale was could be used. So it's teaching us how it's done it. Okay, fine. A lot of information here, which might be too much for you to go through, but you could build this through. So that's one way of doing something, and you can work with it. The other way of doing it is saying, I'm recruiting for a finance officer, part-time role, 30 hours a week, based in Surrey, working for Age UK. Can you, research Age UK, research what a typical finance officer role would involve. We're using Sage Line 50. for example, and then write up an impactful, engaging advert that I could post on a job board. Now, is that a great prompt? Not particularly. So it says Sage line 59. But it's an example, yeah. And I don't think there's many times where people are saying, I need to write a job advert with, freestyling it. They'll have a very structured prompt. Let me know in the chat, guys, whether you have like almost like a prompt library, some of you might have, that you're saving prompts. That could just be you, for you being more efficient in your job, or it could be as a team or as an organization, you're actually crafting prompts. I'm going to show you a detailed prompt in a second, and we can see here, like it's grabbed some information. It might have grabbed the fact that this role's already live, so it might have it might have gone, oh yeah, finance officer, there's one already here for Age UK, so they probably want it written like this. So it's done a reasonable job. Okay, so that's the basics. That's just playing with prompting, and I've very specifically said playing with prompting there because the more you play with these tools, we don't give out AI to our staff and say have a play, but the more they explore them with an aim in mind, but the more they try things and don't worry about breaking things. Yes, read the employee AI usage policy. Make sure you know what you can upload into ChatGPT, for example, and what you shouldn't. Obviously, job adverts don't have any personal information in for the most part, unless there's an email address or email your CV to this person or something. But largely, there's no personal data in them, so there's not really a GDPR concern there. So it's just about getting creative. So the idea is to play with it, work it through, test things out, and you will come to a prompt that you like. So here's the structure of a good prompt, what we're told. So task, you're clearly defining, this is what I want to get to. I'm creating an advert for read.co.uk. The context, I want the advert to be out. I want the output to be like this. This is what I'm trying to achieve. Try this style. I want, quite often when you say tone of voice, we actually say a formal tone of voice. Now, normally when we're talking, we think our tone of voice is quite informal here at hireful. But the problem is obviously ChatGPT is not a B2B tool. Just because you're using it and other businesses are using it, it's also their general public. So if you say an informal tone, it will be like, what's up, job seekers or something. It's not going to be informal business talk. It's going to be informal for someone talking on the high street, So bear that in mind. Persona, that's important because you're telling it what hat to wear. You're an experienced recruitment copywriter. Right. Okay, so how would an experienced recruitment copywriter go about this task? That's the mindset that AI puts itself within. Format, do you like bullet points? Do you like headings? What should those headings be? You get to control a lot of stuff with that as well. So you can get the controlled output of saying, these are the headings I want you to use, which is absolutely what we would suggest. And then your preferred voice, UK English, reading age. These are all important things. Yesterday we discussed making the advert quite accessible with everyday language. Do not include phrases like remuneration when you're talking about salary, for example. There's no need. And then rules. Any other rules you want the AI to follow. So that could even be an additional information. So that could be things like, don't use these words. Yeah, these words are commonly used with AI, like, I don't like the phrase passionate because passionate is used in about 1 in 3 job adverts. So let's not use the term passionate. Yeah, other phrases commonly used in AI are things like game changer and things like this. So you can actually look them up. There's it's easy to say, like, give me a list of words that have been identified as commonly used in AI generated content. It will give you a long list, and you can say, do not include these words. If you substitute these words if you have. The only time you've got to worry about that is if the word is in the title. So like if you might not like the phrase stakeholder, you might want a more everyday word, and then it actually starts changing the title of your advert sometimes if that was in the title. But largely you're fine saying do not use these words. Okay, let me know if you've got any questions. Here is an example of a prompt. I've had to put it in 2 areas here. So there's the task, the context, the persona, the tone, the format. The format would get into what we're looking for, the philosophy that we set up out yesterday, saying, right, short advert, 350, 450 words. So we don't have to specify the exact number. We'll just give it a good range. That will create quite a short advert. And then this is for hireful, like about what we will be doing, what you'll need, how we reward you, what's next. And so we make sure that all of those areas are brought through into the advert. Okay, so that gives you a bit of an idea. And this is the other one I touched on already today, where you can either say, at the end of the project, you can get the output and say, provide me a numbered list of suggested improvements. Yeah, so you could put in your original advert and ask that, or you could put in your prompt, get an advert, and then even after it's giving you it's one of the best tips on ChatGPT is because if this was a human, you've got to be mindful of like upsetting them. If someone wrote you a job advert and said, that's great, thank you for doing that, can you just go away and write me a list of the suggested improvements you'd make on your own work? They'd be like, you're suggesting this isn't my best work, but we could all probably improve something if we went back and had a second look at it and thought, okay, well, how do I improve this? We'd always come up with some ideas. Not all of them might be brilliant, but the AI will go away and suggest some improvements. It's always a really good way of doing it. So I would recommend that. In fact, I've got the phrase hashtag IMP. Let me just try that now. Is saved into my customized instructions. So when I tell it hashtag IMP, I then tell it to think about what it's just done and see if it can improve it. And give me a list of suggestions. So now it's giving me a list of suggestions to where I want it. So that's I'll just show you that actually, because it's a little bit technical. It's totally free, and I'm not telling you anything that's complicated. That's anything that's paid for. This is a little bit complicated. You've got custom instructions. We covered this in the ChatGPT webinars we did last month, and you can see anything else I should know about you, and then I've got no, okay, it's down in here. I would say, hold on a second. No, it's not here. It's somewhere else. Apologies, guys. I thought it was in custom instructions. Personalization. Yeah, here we go. So it is if I write a prompt that is just hashtag IMP, then I want you to do the following. So it's just a little area that you can go, if there's something specific you're always asking it to do, you can do it. Now, one of the things is I've just got some basic instructions there. Yeah, provide review your last response and suggest areas for improvement listed out in a numbered list. That's simple. Yeah, that's a nice little trick. I can't put a huge big prompt in there. So when we want really big prompts, do we want it to be stored? That's when we go into custom GPTs in my mind, which we'll talk about. But if there's little hacks that you're like, I'm just going to go hashtag IMP and I want you to, do this with it, like provide it to me. Or if you wrote in, if you had to produce something, let's say constantly in Spanish, so you're like, I want the Spanish version of this. Instead of, you might go hashtag ESP, done. And it would know, right, convert this into Spanish, provide it back like this. So you can build those little hacks in yourself. But I am getting a little bit off subject now. Okay. So I like asking for a list of improvements. I like it being a numbered list, because what you can do with that numbered list, you can just go action 1, 4, and 7, and it will go and make those changes, which is quite nice. So prompting. So there is this, there was a lot of conversation about, let me just get to the questions actually, because Emma's put something on. Is there a certain way a business likes to describe the organization? Can you set this as a rule so all adverts going forward have this same message? If not, how would you say? So we've had some, I'll talk about that in the custom GPT. You raise a very good point, Emma. There might be sections of your advert that you want to control tightly. Like, this is how we describe our organization. And or if you put like legal disclaimers in there, like, you must have a DBS, you must be willing to undergo a DBS check in order for this role, but there might be a very specific way you word that you've been asked to put it in your adverts. And when you push that through into, ChatGPT or whatever you're using, you don't want it to change those parts. Okay. So we'll talk about how to control that a bit later on. You raise a good point. I wouldn't do it via that instructions area. You could do it via the prompt. You could say, please note, do not change the way, the employer will always be described as this. Okay. We'll get to that in a little bit. But there was a conversation, there's been some conversations around like prompting is the new job, the new skill. And then a lot of the AI thinkers of the world are saying, not really, for a limited time, because the expectation is that we're going to be able to, well, two things will happen. The AI will understand us better. Okay, so we take Emma's example there. They'll understand the AI that Emma's company will be using, or organization, will understand that organization. They'll know how they describe themselves, how they talk about themselves, what they do as an organization, what's important to them. So that when Emma comes to them and says, I need a job advert written, she could go with the most basic. She gives them the simple business challenge. We've got to write a job advert. We've got to create a recruitment challenge for our graduate intake. And it'll have all of the context, perhaps because it's got a good history and it's got lots of information that's been fed into it. So that's what will happen going forward more and more. We're building our AI data set here at hireful. So when people start putting prompts into AI tools that we use internally, it starts from a position of really knowing hireful. And that's something we're going to build and build and build. So we'll get to that. So that's one of the things. But also the art of actually doing the prompt, well, the AI is going to get better at doing that anyway. The challenge we've got at the moment is the AI doesn't really understand what we want, so it can't write the prompt. But actually, that's where meta prompting comes in. Okay, so meta prompting sounds like a very technical term. It's not. It's super easy. Okay, so now what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to show you an example actually, because I've got. This is very much like if you've watched any TV in the 80s where they had doing any baking or anything. They were like, here's one I've made earlier. A lot of my stuff is here's one I made earlier. Let me just check this. Right. So is this, I want to just check if this is still running. This is, yeah, I think it probably is. Research completed. Okay, good. Good. Right. I am going to explain this to you then. We're going to get to this in a bit. Well, we're going to get to this now, but there's lots going on here. So, when I started this, let me bring up another Claude because I don't know. Okay. Put that over here. Sorry, I got a couple of ChatGPTs going on. Yeah, I did it here. No. Let's see. Sorry. Yeah, this is it. Okay, so apologies, guys. So I verbally popped into ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT to create me a prompt because the prompt I was needing was going to be quite technical. Yeah, it was going to be quite detailed. I could have wrote it myself, but it would have taken me a lot longer. Much better for me to get the prompt from them and then I edit it to be exactly what I want, take out the bits I don't like, etc. And then I let it run. So what I actually said to it, I said, I need to create a prompt for an AI reasoning model. So that just means ChatGPT has these different models. Up here, you'll see like these ones here. Yeah. And it's got some that are very good at having deep thinking that will go away and work on something for like 20, 30 minutes. And then it will come away and come back and give you the results. Okay. So I want you to start by researching the best copywriters for adverts and then also research well-considered competent blog posts. So not just random ones, but the ones that are coming from good areas to write and that talk about how best to write a recruitment job advert. So the idea is that would give it a starting point of what the experts of the world think about writing a good job advert. Then this prompt you give me would complete this research and then be able to analyze a job advert and then give it a series of suggested alternative updates based on these different styles and approaches that people are taking. Yeah, various schools of thought. So it gave me this. This is the actual prompt it gave me, quite long, quite detailed. The output structures here, generate alternatives, analyze an example advert. So it's up to step 3 now. We need to give it an example advert. I am just going to find a job advert. So as I said, we work with everyday organizations. So when someone asks me, like, what's one of your customers, like maybe one of my son's friends asked me, like, who anyone would I know that works, but that you're as a customer hire for, the only one I've got that people largely know is probably Fulham Football Club. Okay, so let's go and take this job advert, view job. Okay. It's got the word passionate in it, which, okay, it's quite short, which is good. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to say, here is the job advert. Because it's conducted its research. I'm going to show you what it's done, by the way. I just need to get it running. Here is the job advert, and I think it should get running now on phase 2, and then I'll explain this in a second. Okay, now it's getting to work. So what I've asked it to do, I've asked it to go away and look at all these things. You can read through the actual report that it gave me, how to write a great job advert from Hayes, key advice, what workers want. So, it's got survey information, stats, etc., etc. Down the right-hand side, you've got this chain of thought, which you never used to get, and it tells you all the things it's doing. It's looking at, all these experts coming up with different ideas. And now I'll analyze my job advert, giving it a critique, strengths, weaknesses. So it's clearly target. So strengths clearly target female football coaches. Comprehensive list of requirements. Positive tone. Weaknesses, the headline. It's functional but uninspiring. Okay, well, bear in mind I told it to look at the world's greatest advert writers. Yeah, that's not surprising that it's come like that. Wordy and dense. The advert is long with some sections reading like an internal job rather than persuasive copy. Interesting. Okay. Program names like Premier League Inspires or Empower Her are listed without context, which may confuse readers unfamiliar with them. That's pretty good. Okay, so this has done a deep dive. The actual analysis of the advert wasn't deep research. It done it quite quickly. But the analysis of what the schools of thought are around, the best copywriting, and then what's the best strategies and tactics for job advert copywriting, that it took 20 minutes. I actually kicked this process off before we started the webinar and let it run. And then it's now giving me variations on it. Okay, it's giving me Ogilvy, which is, is it David Ogilvy? He's the one that's always quoted as one of the greatest world experts in advertising. And he's got their version of it, data-driven, a blog approach by Hayes, the blend, and their version of it. Emotive storytelling. Yeah, so you've got different ideas. Okay, so the only reason I use this is deep research is limited to use on a free account, but it is there. So if you have a challenge that you want it to go away and research something for you, I would encourage, and it's a really good example of meta prompting. I would go and tell ChatGPT your challenge. Say, I'm looking to create a prompt for an AI reasoning model that will go away and produce research and look at this area. And when I use voice, I just literally waffle, as I am now, into it and give it a whole chunk of information, not necessarily the most organized way. It can work its way through that. That's fine. And I even say sometimes, oh, but yeah, not like that. Actually, scrub that and do that. And I just carry on. It will scrub the last idea and it will do it with the new idea that I'm giving it. So I just drop all that in. It gives me a nice prompt. If I had the time, I didn't. I just dropped it in. I then edited. I'd normally edit that prompt. So I would have gone into this original prompt at the very top here. I'm going to have to go right to the top. This original prompt that I put in. Yeah, I could have gone in and edited this. I didn't. I just dropped it in because of time, etc., etc. Okay. So Victoria's asking, is this something that can be achieved using Copilot? I am pretty sure. Does Copilot have a deep research equivalent? Let's just find out. If you're interested, my 76-year-old mum got her on ChatGPT at the weekend. So yeah, it's got something similar, but it's not equivalent to deep research. Reasoning model. Let me just ask it again. A reasoning model, because I probably shouldn't have said deep research. A reasoning model available on Copilot. I can type, just not today. Let's see what it says. No, apparently there's not. It keeps talking about GitHub, but let me just say, not GitHub, but the more generally used Copilot version that office workers are using. I'm not really interested in GitHub. GitHub is a tool for programmers, so maybe it's getting confused. Does not currently include a fully fledged reasoning model. Okay, so not really. Surprised at that. Okay, I thought it would have. Okay, so these are the AI reasoning models. A few things to think about. DeepSeek launched in 2025. You may remember that earlier in the year it came out, and it's a Chinese AI tool, and it caused all the AI companies to drop because ChatGPT was charging $200 per month for what I just showed you there. Now, that deep research, you have a limited number of searches. It doesn't tell you how many it was. It was originally, it was free, so as in 1, 2, 3, but even on a free account, now now it doesn't say that. So it would be limited. You can't just keep running, the deep research queries through ChatGPT, but that used to be $200 a month. A good example of how much AI costs are coming down. So when we look at challenges here, we think about our ATS and we think, oh, well, we could do that for customers, but wouldn't it be really expensive? We're not put off by that necessarily, because we're thinking, well, it's going to take us 3 months to develop. And then, we have to beat our customers, roll it out, another 3 months. We may have to charge for it at the start, but maybe by another 3 months after that, it will be much, much cheaper. Okay. So there's some information about what an AI reasoning model is and how it works. I don't want to go too much details. I think one of the nice things that's a big change for it is what's called this bit here, the chain of thought reasoning, which I touched on, is this bit down the right-hand side where sorry, let me get to my browser. This bit down here, where you can actually see how it's going about the challenge. That originally ChatGPT was very nervous about providing that, because that was sort of like their secret sauce around how the AI worked. But then when other tools started showing that, then they thought, well, yeah, we sort of have to now. And because you can see how it's gone about it, you can then obviously get more into the detail and change it. Okay, so I haven't done a lot of time building prompts and playing with stuff. We've gone live with AI reasoning. But what I want to show you is, we're going to get into custom GPTs in a second. We've touched on meta prompting. And you can sort of see there's just a quick example of meta prompting. I need a prompt from you. You can sort of see that same sort of thing again. But when you do meta prompting for research process, any sort of research process, you can sort of see the idea is here, work out what you're trying to do, research that with ChatGPT, you refine the prompt, you put the prompt into the deep research model, or whatever you're using, and then you can compare the results and compile a report. It's quite nice. But we've done some meta prompting. What I really want to talk about is custom GPTs today. So, advert copy is, one thing. You can work on those prompts, and it is quite straightforward. And I will still be talking about the advert copy prompts. I want to get into that, the basics, but I'm going to do it within the framework of custom GPTs. Okay, so before I just jump into showing you, let me just explain what a custom GPT is. It's a tailor-made version of ChatGPT. So when we go in and ask it to do something, it's got a set of instructions. So there was always the talk about, and it's a really good analogy, think of these AI tools like an intern, like an 18-year-old who has, no specific knowledge about your business, but is, fairly intelligent and can do lots of things. So then it's a matter of, the custom GPT would be, you've given that 18-year-old a task overnight to read this book and to do this, and you've told them a clear set of instructions that they've memorized to say, when I ask you to do a job advert, I want you to do it in this way. So then you can simply, instead of, you think about those two scenarios, the one intern with no instructions and no background, you're having to provide a lot of instructions to them to say, we need a job advert. Oh, by the way, it needs all this and all this and all this. So, that's ChatGPT, where you're putting in a really big prompt, and then maybe you're telling it extra things. Like Emma said, maybe you're being very much mindful of saying, oh, but make sure you don't change how we describe our organization. You're putting that in. But then the educated intern you've given all the instructions to, and they've read them overnight or whatever. Clearly, AI doesn't take overnight to read all these. It will take a minute, maybe 2 at most. And that person you can give the job advert to, and they just get on with it and go, yeah, there you go. How does that look? You get 2 very different results. Yeah, and one's much quicker. So the idea is you build your own instructions into the back end, yeah, and it can use your data. So you can actually say, look, here's several examples of how we write adverts that we like, and it will go ahead and use those examples. But it can also, another benefit, it can walk colleagues through. The obvious example here would be hiring managers, but you could use custom GPTs for a wide variety of different recruitment tasks. And when I say custom GPT, I know there's a lot of Copilot people on the session today. So I think it's called Copilot agents, they refer to them as. It's exactly the same principle. Okay, so don't worry if you're not using custom. If you've got Copilot agents, now I've got some slide about costs as well to talk to you about as well. So it might be that there's already people in your business, if you're using Copilot, who could build you the Copilots you want. simple as that. We'll get to that, the Copilot agents. So the other benefit though is you get to walk people through step by step. So if you said to a hiring manager, here's the tool, it will write job adverts for you. The hiring manager might not know what to, how to, what to put into it, But if it went through a series of questions with the hiring manager, which you could train it to do, you say, like, start by asking the user, do you have a job spec to upload? No, I don't. If they don't, then do this. You can sort of see. So you could walk them through that process of if their information isn't recorded, they haven't got a job spec to upload or cut and paste, then you could have a series of questions that you ask them to gather that information. Yeah. And maybe when you're asking the question, you might even say, oh, we recommend you use the voice mode to answer these questions because that will enable you to provide a fuller answer. Remember, how you answer the question, the words you use, and the lack of structure or whatever else is irrelevant. It's just about giving us the information. So you could actually use the tool you build to sort of guide the individual about how you want to extract that information, to make it a better experience for them. So we'll show you all of this when we get running, and you can build guardrails, like we say. Look, this is it, Emma. It's already on your thing. All advert copy must include our company description, which cannot be changed. Here is our company description. Okay. But there are other things in your adverts you might want to think about. I said legal disclaimers is another one. How you position the diversity, equity, and inclusion statements, like this is our organization's beliefs around this. This is what we stand for. Once again, that probably also sits in the stuff you absolutely cannot change and must be included in every advert, perhaps. Okay. Emma said, in regards to deep research on Copilot, it became available April 25th, which is obviously fairly recent. By the way, I had to look at my clock to work that out. The reason ChatGPT responded, Copilot doesn't have a deep root because GPT-4 only has knowledge up till June 2024. Oh, okay, without prompting it to do web search. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, fair play. Good answer. Okay, so a quick explain about licenses. So there's a free license on ChatGPT, which you've probably been using. There's a paid for plus license, $20 a month. And there's a pro license, $200 a month. And then, they've also got a team license, which is $25 a month. Okay, we use team licenses because the benefit with team licenses is, as you see down here, you can create and share GPTs, they mean custom GPTs, within your workspace. So if I build a GPT, I can make it available to the other users in my workspace, but not any wider than that. So we'll talk about that. And obviously there's enterprise as well. So if you're gonna use AI, I think at some point you're probably gonna upgrade to probably the plus level. A lot of the stuff in the pro level is only really for like real enthusiasts, perhaps, or real people using it a lot. Or there's a really solid, like there's video generation, it's key for you or something like that. But also a lot of the stuff here is just sliding over into plus. And a lot of the stuff in plus slides over into free because everything becomes a little bit more cost effective, as we've seen. Okay. So custom GPTs, just give you an idea on pricing. So in order to build custom GPTs, I'm going to show you now in a second, you need to be spent, you can only get that on a plus account or on the Teams account or the pro account. You must spend at least $20 a month. However, if you had one of those accounts, like if I was the AI expert in your organization, I could build these custom GPTs and then share them with you. Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to edit them and change them, but only one person needs to have that account to build them, but they can share them, and I'll show you that as well. Google has its own version called Gems. Now they're free to create, but you can't share them at all. Okay, so there's yins and yangs to all this. Claude, which I'm also going to show you today, is £20 per month, but access is limited to the creator. Okay, so there's a bit limit there. Although there is ways of opening that out with artifacts and stuff, so it's a bit more complicated, but it is definitely doable. And Copilot, well, Copilot's interesting. You can pay the $30 per month account to create the agents, and then you can share them to other Copilot users as long as they're using $30 a month account. But there's a standalone studio, which is $200 a month. So I think a lot of organizations will probably use it, their Copilot, where maybe like the advanced people create these agents and then they can share them within their organization. So it could be that you already have someone with a standalone studio account in your organization, and they could build these things you need that I'm going to show you now. Because what I'm going to show you now about code around custom GPTs is, it's the principle. I actually built one today and just moved it across from ChatGPT across to Claude. It's that simple. Okay. So let's go live in this because let's go live and just show you. So what I've got here, let me just bring up my window again. Sorry, and here we no, not that one. That way. So what I've got here is right. So come across and we go to let's leave that one there. We're going to go across to my GPTs. Should have had this set up really, so apologies for this, guys. It always takes a little bit of time to load. So come across here and we go to GPTs. The naming of these things is not right. I've got my GPTs, and I'm just going to show you a basic one that I created, which is York College. Okay. So look, this is when I said that you can make it, so you make it nice and easy for your managers, so you can give it a description. I'll show you, well, let me just show you how to do this. Edit. So the description goes in there, and then it appears over here. Title goes there, and it appears there. The logo goes in, you put your company logo on it if you so wish, or some other logo that you like. And then you have these conversation starters. See these two here? These are the two buttons that appear here. The conversation starters are quite good because sometimes, if you've got users who are not very good with AI, they look at it and go, oh, I don't know what to do. So that's quite nice. It directs them on how to get working with it. And then I've got my instructions. Okay. So option 1, if someone says I have a job spec I need converting, then do this. Okay. And then it goes through and says, these are the things I want you to do. Do not use overly long sentences. Use bullet points where relevant. Have everything organized into these headings. Okay. Use UK English, not you. Yes, it's just a basic prompt here. I've got maybe more detailed, better ones. It's not bad. It's got the general principles. And it's telling me you really replace the terms passionate, solicit, all these phrases I don't like because they're too long-winded. Remuneration, accountabilities. So it'll go and do its work. But what I've also done in the knowledge area, I've uploaded examples of their previous advert copy. So now you can go in and you can give it an advert and it will go away and it will do those instructions. Yeah. Hopefully that makes sense to you for the people who haven't seen it. The instructions are in the back end. It just goes away and does that work. Okay. I'm going to show you one example of this that's a bit different, and this is where I'm going to show you Claude. Now, here's Claude. And over on Claude, I built a job advert analysis report. So there's some basic instructions over here. It's very similar to custom GPT, and it says how will the output to come. But really, most of the instructions are held in this document here, which is, I think it's a very long document, 40 pages of instructions that I wrote. You'll understand why when I show you. So what I can do now is I can drop in a job advert. Let me drop in the URL as well. It'll ask me for it anyway, so I'll drop it in. Just drop in the URL. Okay. And it will go and it will analyze that advert for me based on my instructions. This is one of the things we're working on building into our ATS. So before I begin, it's got the URL, you provide that employer's name, right? I have all the information. So this is just telling me what it's doing. Now it's going to start the analysis, it's going to produce a report. So it goes through and it says, yeah, you've explained who the employer is. It's like an advert check. It goes, because I've given it a clear, detailed set of instructions, the number of essential requirements. It's going through this, right? So as it goes through all this stuff, so it doesn't just check it. It says, yeah, number of essential requirements. It will pull through the ones you've used if it decides that's important. And then it's got my instructions from the advert, from the report, highlighting why that's important. Yeah, and I've said, always explain why this is important in this case. So it looks at location. It says, yeah, the advert mentions multiple boroughs, but it lacks specific information, but it's going to. That advert lacks a call to action. There's no salary, there's no benefits. It doesn't really mention lots about the value and culture. Training is mentioned a little bit. Remote working is not mentioned. It does avoid jargon. It doesn't mention what the next steps are, which is like, how you, and then it even looks at DEI and stuff here. It looks at female, pulls out the female coded words. Obviously it's for a female coach, I believe. Yeah, female football coach. So that was good. Doesn't mention reasonable adjustments for disabled candidates. So it just goes through and just checks all these parts of the adverts. And then obviously there's references that it gives out. So it's not just the claims it's making above, it's supporting it with these. So that's all from my instructions. That's quite a complicated one. Like I said, the one we looked at over here with York, much more basic, but you can get it to do like quite advanced things with your adverts. So that's a tool I'm going to be building as well. So I'm probably going to try and make that accessible to everyone. So in the future, you might be able to like just say, I want to run my advert through the accessibility audit, and it will just run it. And we'll build this in our ATS, but we'll also build it out of our ATS if you want to run it and test these things in there. But hopefully, let's just give a bit of an idea around what's possible. I think the key thing is for me, the actual prompt is just a matter of you putting in a list the things you want in your advert, the things you don't want. Like Emma said, do not change this, do change this. But for me, the sort of key breakthrough is actually understanding about custom GPTs, and then being able, or Copilot agents, as they're called there, and being able to say, yeah, what we want to do, we want to build a tool that helps our staff to generate advert copy faster. So we're not having to cut and paste in quite long prompts. Although, we love ChatGPT and it's brilliantly fast compared to what the alternative was, we can make it even more efficient if we build these tools that do these very specific jobs, whether that's auditing the advert, creating the advert. There's lots of things we could do. I know I've built that tool. It's probably a little bit more, quite a bit complicated, but the same principle you could do. You could say, look at our advert, check to see, we don't want more than, I've said here, it must have a minimum, no more than 5 essential requirements, or it'll come back with an issue. It could be that your version of that is 8, so you could say, like, these are the things we want our advert to be, and you can build an audit tool to just check your advert afterwards as well. So these things are eminently doable. It's just a matter of you writing the instructions and maybe the explanation back to the people, because you could just say, right, this is wrong, but hopefully what you're doing is you're training your staff as to why this is wrong, why this is important for you as an organization, etc., etc. Okay, so there's Claude. Weaknesses for Claude, it's got a few little weaknesses really, but the 2 big strengths for Claude, and if you're focused, so my general view is, and I think, the general view of most people is, Claude is better at writing. So marketeers love it. Our marketing team loves it. And the other one, which I think is really important, relates to the comment Emma made about, like, don't change the way I describe my business. Claude is much better at following instructions. Yeah, although always check the output. You can't just copy and paste and publish. That isn't going to work. Well, it can work, but it's fraught with a few issues. So Claude, I think Claude is my preferred at the moment. But the thing about ChatGPT is, when I want to do like ideas for this or that, ChatGPT is like a Swiss Army knife. It's so good at so many things. So if it's more general purpose stuff I'm doing, I'm over in ChatGPT. If it's writing something, or I'm trying to build, like you just saw, like a report or something like that, I'm going to build it in Claude, because Claude is better at following instructions. It will do exactly what I want if I give it very specific instructions. Okay, we've done Claude. So finishing off, what does the future hold for AI? I know we're coming up to the hour, guys. So what it does, you can expect your competition, the market generally, to write better adverts. AI, many of them AI supported, in some cases AI generated, but the standard of adverts at the moment is, there's plenty of person spec style adverts out there. I suspect whether you're putting an advert into a job board or an ATS, whatever it is, it will be like, would you like me to help you? And it will, there'll be tools that will be seen. AI will help it write better adverts. In lieu of those better adverts anyway, because I don't think that the adverts are necessarily connected to this next problem, but you're going to have more applications. You're already seeing that. There's lots of research around it, particularly when we see auto apply tools come in that are already there. That will be a big game changer. Yeah, I do think in 1 to 2 years, the general public, so the general person who's uses a computer but not an expert at it will have this thing of, oh, do you remember when we used to have to fill out forms? Because your browser will fill out the form for you. We already see this already with credit card details and stuff like this, but generally most of us are filling out a job application form. Whereas if you've got an AI-powered browser, which Google and all the others are building, then it can just go away. I could say I want to apply for this job, and I could go open a new window and carry on this webinar, and it will just come back to me and say, Adrian, there's an extra question we don't know the answer to about this. Go and give it the answer, and it just carries on. Now, that's already possible at the moment, but it's not mainstream. But once that becomes mainstream, you can expect a lot more applications. But the other challenge is, and we talk about employee AI usage policies, if you don't give your staff AI, more people are going to actually use their own AI. And I tell you why they're going to use it, because they want to be productive, they're enthusiastic about AI, but also, particularly people who work from home, if you give them a job of like create these 5 advert copies, and they've built a custom GPT and they can do it in 20 minutes, a little bit of editing afterwards or something, maybe it takes them half an hour, but traditionally that took them 4 hours or 3 hours. They can walk the dog, put the washing on, go for a cup of coffee with their friend at a cafe and come back. So, if you don't give AI tools to people, if you don't, more organizations should be giving out AI tools and having AI-powered expectations of delivery rather than, just carrying on regardless, because your staff will start to use tools and then be like, they'll either tell you I'm really efficient, or more likely they'll, be only working 25% of the time perhaps. So there's a really good article here about a law firm that looked into the AI usage of their staff, and they were astounded. So many people were using AI to help them. And it's not surprising, because law firms, particularly, I don't have this law firm at all, but a lot of law firms will push their staff a lot, work them, particularly the younger staff that are starting out, they're working crazy hours. So of course they're going to move towards AI. That would seem like the obvious solution to get a bit of work-life balance back. So there is a race to embrace these policies. So I will share with you, we've got this document here, which I will put on the notes to share out to people. It's just a template document that we produced, employee AI usage policy, and it just sort of highlights. It's got lots of comments on it as well, where you can actually sort of, it tells you like, think about this, think about that. We're not a law firm, so our aim is to sort of educate you guys so you could have a think about, you can get this document, maybe give it to your legal people in-house or externally, but at least you're abreast of some of those issues so you can have a proper conversation about them. It's because my worry as well is you might get a law firm who just comes and says, yeah, here's a policy, it's really harsh. It's limiting you to only using this or that. And then that could be, as we've seen today, quite limiting because, yeah. Okay, so finishing up, we've got lots of fun webinars coming on. I just want to mention this. I'll put these 2 next week's webinars on the chat. So next week, where I'll be talking about, similar to this week really, I've got a webinar on Tuesday talking about how to build great candidate experience, what that really looks like. And then on the Wednesday, the following day, we look at how AI can improve and enhance that candidate experience. So there's sort of the standard one, which has lots of good principles and good tactics and ideas in. And then we're looking at, okay, well, that's great, but how can AI take this further on the Wednesday? So feel free to sign up to that if that's relevant. There's lots more webinars on our website, so I'm not really thinking very well at the moment. And that's pretty much it as we come up to 10:59, guys. So if you could rate the webinar, I'm going to hang around if there are any questions. We had some good engagements. I've really appreciated that. And Emma helped us out with some research around Copilot. I'm definitely going to run a session specifically on Copilot, so I look forward to that. So watch this space for that. And yeah, and then I don't see any other questions. So I will leave you to your morning. And if anyone is working and having a problem with a prompt, I'll say, like, I've tried it, I'm not sure. What do you think of this prompt, Adrian? Could you improve it? Or we're doing it like this, but it's not paying attention to what we think. Then let me know. You can fire it through to me, connect me on LinkedIn, or there's my email address. I'd love to help. That's my job. My title here is Chief Helper. So yeah, good luck with the AI, and just remember, it's about getting to grips with it and having a play. All right, thanks guys, bye.